And now, a segment which I take a risk doing every week. I will say anything about any IDW dirtbag, about any Wall Street or oligarch goon that owns the global economy. I'll say anything about the foundations of capitalism, but I am afraid and increasingly concerned by some of the texts that I'm getting regarding this segment that we're about to do. But yet we persist. I would just like to say, Mr. Wolf, nothing but respect from me, presumably from Matt. I'm sure Matt's choked his way through a couple of bong hits.
Team David Harvey all the way.
Oh, shit. Wow. Matt in a pincer move in support of Griscom's. Guys, this is funny, but is the music ready?
All David thought.
David thought. Economic Minute with David Griscom, that little prick with the Oedipal complex. Let's do this.
Well, I'm sure we've all seen those stupid stories that warm every suburban dad's heart about supercommuters, people who have to travel 4 or 5 hours to get to work.
Yes.
And of course, we understand the structural reasons why those stories are quite depressing rather than encouraging stories of perseverance.
Oh, God.
But I wanted to talk about supercommuters a little bit more broadly because it is actually something that is on the rise. And primarily, most supercommuters aren't those folks that we're talking about who are taking 10, 15 buses to get to work. A lot of supercommuters historically have been rich people, so people who want to work in New York City, but they want to live in the suburbs, and they take a job like that.
Don Draper.
Yeah, exactly. All those characters. But over the last decades,
definitely the go-to for an economic section.
Yeah, that would be
fictional character.
That's like one of those terrible college courses.
So we're thinking Mad Men and not Sopranos here.
But over the past decade, we've actually have seen a significant increase in supercommuters, especially among low-income and working-class workers. And these are in areas that you would sort of expect. So these are like Stockton, California, Modesto, California, New York City, Bridgeport, Connecticut, San Francisco. So these are all communities where you have these like super powerful economic zones, which are becoming more and more unaffordable to live in if you are making a low-income working class salary. So what we're seeing now is this large increase, not only in folks who are becoming supercommuters, but in the amount of time that it's taking for folks to get in. And what's a major cause of that? Well, most of the low-income workers who are supercommuters use public transportation. So that's even in a city like New York, where it's like just to get into Manhattan, if you're on one of the outer boroughs, we've seen the degradation of our public transportation system. It's taking people longer and longer to get to work, which is increasing the amount of time that it takes to get in. I don't even have to paint the picture of how terrible it is to have to commute, 90 minutes, 120 minutes, an hour and 50 minutes. It's very rough. But just to give you an understanding of how much it's increasing, I have a couple numbers for you. The worst city, of course, is San Francisco, where the amount of supercommuters has increased over 113%. Another city, Seattle, home of Amazon, they've seen supercommuters increase by over 65% over the past 10 years. And Portland has seen their share increase from 50%. Now, what's a unique thing about those cities? These are all tech cities, run by our favorite people, Google, Amazon, the FANG bros. And what's happened in these communities is not only has their public transportation systems sort of been degraded, home prices have increased, because what happens when you have these tech companies move into cities is you have home prices just skyrocketing, because you have half the population making $250,000 a year. You have all of these services that come in that are only geared toward the wealthiest members of the community, while you see working people suffer. You have that mixed with the fact that these companies move in there and they demand tax cuts, they demand cuts in revenue. So in Seattle, we saw what happened with the city government, where even after trying to pass a very moderate head tax on employees, Amazon basically threatened the city. This is becoming a huge problem across the nation, and it's something that is expanding. I mean, we're seeing homeless populations in Seattle. The homeless population is around 11,000 people. And think about this for a second. The only cities that are bigger are New York City and LA. New York City has 76,000 and LA is around 55,000. And many of these people are newly homeless. Many of these people are people who had lived in these communities who have been uprooted from their homes because they can't afford to live anymore. I think it's really important that we start thinking about the social costs of these tech industries, not just in the disparity of wealth, but in what they do to communities.
Right.
The flight of capital, the flight of avoidance of taxes has decimated city governments. And now we're watching this disgusting example with mayors fawning over Amazon's second headquarters.
So disgusting.
And they're demanding
So
between $5 billion and $10 billion in tax breaks to move into a
It's a
headquarters.
mafia organization
So look
that
out,
offers
cities
less than the mafia, getting feted by people who are theoretically public servants while they extort from the cities that they would plant their businesses. Disgusting.
No,
just disgusting.
without a doubt. And we need to start seriously talking about solutions. And I'm just going to say this. I know it's going to get a lot of people very angry, and my email inbox is ready for this.
Wait, hold on.
But we need to start talking a little bit more seriously about this UBI fetish. And we'll talk about universal basic income in the future. But there's a reason that people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos
Right.
and Mark Zuckerberg support it. Now, I know before I get a bunch of angry tweets, there are many different types of UBI. I understand that I'm not necessarily against the idea. But what I'm going to say to you is this, is that we have all these social programs, we have all this social spending that has been absolutely decimated by these corporations. And I just think at this moment, we need to be talking seriously about reforms that we can achieve that aren't going to harm people. Because a lot of the UBI platforms that I'm seeing raised are very much focused on automation and very much like tech-centered. And they won't solve these problems because you look what these companies want to do in these communities. They want to avoid paying taxes. They don't care about the social services. And there's no reason to think that they're going to, have a change of heart when it comes into these new solutions they have for the tiered society that they are creating.
UBI for these people, for the tech sector, and the way UBI will be introduced in our current politics. There are good UBI programs, even moderate runs. The families, Bolsilia Familia, Lula, that was a very good program. There's much more radical conceptions of UBI, which really essentially are decoupling work from worth and freedom. That's fine.
I think those are great.
The way that it's going to be delivered by these people, this is their concept of 21st century tech feudalism, of how to keep the serfs from uprising.
Exactly.
Any proposal that they put together that is forwarded by these people will be regressive, disciplinary. The literature of Francis Fox Piven on the welfare state disciplining people is going to be this to the nth degree with any UBI that comes out of a neoliberal Silicon Valley framework. It's very dangerous.
And let's just not forget,
and not fundamental.
And let's not forget that these tech companies largely have profited off of public and social good, off of government programs that have created a lot of this technology that they are now using. So we should not be so cheap as to let them give us a little UBI each month and allow them to profit off of the entire social, the society.
A
that
little
we've
cash
together.
voucher and transfer from your Amazon Prime account.
That's a
cannot
drop
make
in
up
the bucket
for a public good and a commons that has been privatized and generated trillions of dollars of profit while jeopardizing your personal security. It's disgusting. Think structurally, think deeply. On another note, sorry to do this.
Just make sure you do it well and you do it with passion.
Just got a message. Literally says, Richard Wolff, the best Marxist economist and podcaster on the planet, to that little asshole talking about UBI. How about you super commute your way the fuck out of Brooklyn before there's a problem? Toodaloo, Dick Wolf.
I like the throwback there at the end. Let's go.
Oh, shit.
No, all love to Richard Wolff.
All love to Richard Wolff, as always. Everybody should listen to the Economic Update with Richard Wolff.